Welcome to Business Spotlight, and I'm delighted to say that I'm with Nel Woolcott this morning, and I'm not going to tell you anything about her because I want her to do that herself. Thanks for spending the time with us this morning, Nel.
No problem. It's a pleasure.
So let's start with a bit of background context. Tell us who you are, what you do, and how long you've been doing it for.
So I am Nel Woolcott, and currently working for Ann Corder Recruitment. Recently stepped into the role of managing director. It was late 21. Was when we announced that to the world, but effectively from March 21 I stepped into the leadership role, having been part of the management team within the organisation for the previous 23 years. So my 26th Ann Corder Recruitment birthday comes up in May, and
Wow.
I'm delighted to say that means that I've been there for over half my life. So it's been great fun, roller coaster, but great fun.
Yeah, and we'll explore that roller coaster, but I mean, just to give us a bit of context about the industry at the moment, I guess a lot has changed since the pandemic. What are the main things that are going on in the recruitment industry just now?
Gosh, how long have you got? So the pandemic forced huge change on working populations, regardless of the industries and sectors that they were working in. And it's been a bit of a climb, an uphill climb, to try and work out what a modern recruitment world looks like. And I think a lot of our clients are still adjusting to that. And we've got organisations that mandate 100% presence in the office, some that offer truly agile working, which is, it's about the outputs and position yourself where best to be successful today. And largely organisations electing a 2 or 3 day hybrid working policy, but often those days are mandated. So the challenges that we're facing currently, I think, for those businesses who prefer an in-person presence, is helping them articulate their why. We need to give your potential workforce and your current workforce a solid reason why, and it can't just be because we don't trust them. We need to keep an eye on them. They need to be visible. So there's a huge amount of work that we're doing with clients on that. Candidates are increasingly asking for greater flexibility within their working week, and that might be condensed hours, it might be part-time, and it's about balancing the needs of the organisation that we're recruiting for and finding the right solution for the candidate. So it's ever more complex than ever it was, purely because there are so many more different factors and channels that we're looking at.
Yeah, and I understand that need for flexibility across the workspace, but just to kind of draw a line between what's black and what's white, and I don't know the answer to this question. I'm genuinely curious about whether or not employees have got a right to work from home.
You have a right for a flexible working request, and an employer has a right to refuse that.
Okay. All right. So employees can ask, but ultimately it's up to the boss to decide whether or not he wants people sitting at the desks or not. Yeah. And what do you make of the Great Resignation, or the disappearance of all these people over 50 who've just decided, you know what, I ain't going back? What's going on there? So
I think that's been widely misreported. I have done quite a bit of had a number of conversations around the Great Resignation that was anticipated, and I don't think it's happened as it's been reported in the press. And actually, what the headlines of a couple of weeks ago were that actually the economically inactive, those people who chose potentially to retire early or already retired individuals, are looking for a return into some sort of part-time work to boost their income, or it might be just about connectivity, having spent 3 years or 2 years largely locked away with a finite number of people that you can associate with. So I think we were all expecting the big resignation to come hot on the heels of COVID, reopening of industry, and people going, that's it, I'm off, I need a new challenge. We haven't seen it, or certainly I haven't seen it. And it remains a candidate market, although that's balancing somewhat. There's huge number of jobs out there. I think September last year we reported our largest ever number of vacancies across the UK. So there is a somewhat of a perfect storm going on in terms of skills shortages, because we've got lots of numbers of roles advertised and low numbers of people seeking work. That's, I think, the current state of play with the markets that we're working in, certainly.
I mean, I look across my client base, I think about, I've got a podiatrist, I've got a locksmith, I've got a construction company, and every time they go out to the market to recruit, it seems to be difficult. They are finding it difficult to find good, skilled people to come in. What's going on there?
Many factors, to be honest. I think so. If we step into the mindset of the candidate pool, we face very negative headlines on a regular basis about the economic doom that's going to descend on the UK at some point throughout 2023. And therefore you have quite a cautious workforce, and a nervousness about being last in, first out, and falling into that sort of selection criteria for potential redundancies, as when this sort of massive recession hits us. Equally, the number of roles being advertised is higher. So there are fewer people available anyway, because they can apply for and largely secure work. And again, look at your clients and ask, what are they offering? Is it competitive? Often you find that organizations will go out to market again and again and again with the same offering, which is, one of my favorite quotes is definition of madness is doing the same thing, expecting different results. So if you're not filling a role, why? Is it that the 40-hour week, some organizations still do 40-hour week? Well, you do 40-hour week over a median salary, and those people are earning less per hour. So it's all about, I think, rather than doing repeating what's been done before, is questioning what we did before and asking ourselves, how can we do it better? What can we offer that's better? What can we do that's more attractive? So more and more, the war on talent is real, and it's at every level and in every role.
The war on talent. I've not heard that phrase. I like it. I mean, I say to my clients, you're not putting a job description out there and expecting someone to react to it. You are selling your company. It is a marketing exercise for you to tell somebody why they should come and work for you and not work for somebody else.
And everyone's a customer, right? So that person that every communication that you put out there, your potential customers will read it, whether or not they apply to work in a role with you. But if you come across as authentic and careful about your people, then you'll get more business through that. So I think it's about recognizing that you're right. Everything's a marketing opportunity. Everything is a customer service opportunity as well. Let's not overlook that.
Yeah. So nearly 26 years, and business success is different for different people. Lots of different factors involved in business success. When you look back, what are the main factors in success in your career and in your business?
Crikey, what a question. There's been an absolute evolution of recruitment since I joined the business. In 12th of May 1997, would you believe, different century, and we didn't have individual emails. We had a central email, anncorder@hotmail.co.uk, and if we were wise and sensible, we'd remember to check it at lunchtime. And you fast forward to today, and we're talking 250 emails is a fairly standard day. So I suppose one of the things that I think has contributed to our success as a business is the fact that we've been on the front foot, I think, with digital transformation. So we were early adopters of CRM system in recruitment. We've invested since then. I think we're on our third or fourth system, and certainly our fourth website we've just launched, and with greater capability and capacity within that. So I think we've been on the front foot digitally. We were one of the first organisations to get ISO qualification, certification, should I say, and we've maintained that for a number of years. So standards is how we've maintained our success, I think. But personally, the success comes from relationships. So we're not an organisation that sells. I've been here 26 years. I've never made a cold call, which is so unusual for our industry. But what we do well, and that builds great relationships, and people will come back and come back and come back. And those clients that we place in roles that are decision makers, so we have quite a strong thread in our specialisms with HR. It's about 50% of what we do.
Okay.
Wisely so. Mrs. Corder was very clever in doing that, making that a focus, because they tend to be the people who decide where the recruitment budget is spent.
Yeah.
And if you place somebody and they like what you do, and you can replicate that across all roles or multiple roles within your organization, then that's where we tend to get a good foothold. But we are very, very proud of our standards. We live by doing things well and doing things right and doing things fairly. And in terms of the sort of the three legs of our particular stool, in terms of our success, we've got candidates, we've got clients, and then we've got we've got the organisation, so they're our colleagues. And if we take care of all three of those stool legs, then we tend to do well.
Yeah, it doesn't fall over.
Doesn't fall over. It wobbles sometimes, but it doesn't fall over.
You see that? I mean, what you've said there. I mean, to our listeners, our viewers, I want to pick up on the relationships bit of it, because a lot of businesses get put under lots of pressure to have, an awesome social media presence and an awesome website, and to go out, into the marketplace with a variety of different ways of approaching things, and then they sometimes neglect the fact that great connections and great conversations can be one of the catalysts.
Powerful. The power of the network, I think, is and also an advocate. Use your advocates wisely. And if you can genuinely get somebody to say something nice about you without coercion, then that's an authentically held view, and it comes across quite well. So we've invested time and actually had a number of great laughs actually putting together some video testimonials for our website this year, because launching with video testimonials seems to be the new modern way, and we've had a great opportunity to get out and have proper face-to-face chat with some of our clients. It's really uncomfortable to go, so tell us why you like us.
Yes.
But through that process we did actually have quite a few laughs. So it is, you're absolutely right, those networks, that connectivity, having authentic, trusted working relationships with your suppliers and your clients and your candidates, or your suppliers and your customers, if you're in a slightly simpler business model than ours, I think is something that would really gives great foundation for success.
Yeah, that's really interesting, that relationship bit. I think that's a great lesson for people to pick up on. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about, and I guess you're going to have a bit of a unique perspective here, because when I ask this to other business owners, they think about it from their own position of building a team, right? So with great teams work really well. Having great people in the team is really important. So the question is, what does it take to build a great team? And I guess that's one that you can reflect on from Ann Corder internally, but also having seen your clients and helped your clients to build great teams.
Yeah. Oh, many multifaceted questions. So I'll take that in part with ours first, our team first. So we have a really clear way of bringing people into our organisation, is that they have our trust from day one, and it's complete. And if that is then reciprocated by respecting that trusted relationship, then we have an engaged and effective workforce. Obviously, there's lots that goes behind that. It's the training, the induction, the clarity on their purpose, regular interventions and measurement of successes and also failures. I think it's really, really important to recognise when things don't go well and learn from that. People are able to bring their entire self to work. We've recently put in place a 4-day working week so that people get work life. There's a huge amount of emotional investment in doing what we do. We have to bring emotional energy and integrity to the process, so people trust us to bring the best candidates to them and the best jobs to the candidates. You flip that to an external lens, and what builds effective working teams within our clients. It's no different. It's about understanding what you're there to do, getting people in who can do that, giving them the trust, capability, skills, confidence is a very key thing to deliver what's asked of them. Provide them a safe space to work, and I mean emotionally safe rather than, but also physically safe, but that emotional sense of safety, and give them an opportunity to succeed. People want to feel satisfied by their role. And if you put all of those foundations behind it, that will then, all equals success. And if the individual's successful and the team's successful, the organisation will be successful.
The business will win.
Yeah.
Let me just pick up on what you said about the 4-day week there. I mean, I think again, that's been a lot in the press a lot recently, and
hugely, hasn't it? I mean, the results were something like of the 65 companies, 65% or 90. Can't remember how many companies it was, but huge percentages, about 2/3 were going to adopt the 4-day week.
And you've done it in Ann Corder Recruitment. Any sort of tips for anybody who might be thinking about introducing that into their own business? Trial
first. I went into it with a huge amount of trepidation. But it felt like the right thing to do, because we're a small team and we had signs of burnout. And I think it was really important that we responded to that with something that was carefully and sensitively delivered. So we did a 12-week trial. Productivity was as high, if not higher. Commercial results were higher.
Wow.
And the sort of the impact, the bit that worried me about was not necessarily, it's about the impact of the people not being there on the other individuals covering for their work. So we set up a buddy system. So we had everybody who's was on a 4-day week, and we've got a couple of people who have a different arrangement. They had a buddy system, so they had to keep the other person informed at all times of what was going on in their role. And what actually came from that was the fact that there was a greater insight across our sort of role families, and therefore we were aware that one of the team would be working on a customer service role, and one of the other team would be working on a sales order role, and actually skill sets are largely similar, so we could cross-fertilize the shortlists, and that led to greater success. But I think communication is really important to landing it well. I think being very evident that flexibility needs to go both ways, and on occasion that 5th day we might need you, and it would be, it wouldn't be every week, but occasionally you might have to move your days around, and build in the flexibility for the individual, but also make sure that you protect the business's flexibility as well.
Yes.
And then just be very, very, very crystal clear on what the outputs are and what they need to be, and what they need to do to achieve it. But it's worked well for us.
That's a great insight, because I know that lots of people will be nervous about the idea of suddenly changing the way the business.
Yeah, works. I was really anxious about it. It gave me a few sleepless nights, but wrongly so.
So we've had a good look at the past. Let's have a look going forward in terms of your industry. What are the biggest challenges facing businesses generally?
Skill shortage is an obvious one. I think it's the lack of availability of candidates, and it becomes increasingly evident, I think, when you are in a candidate-driven market, just how central having the right people in your business is to you being successful within your organization. So I would encourage everybody to look at their EVP and their offering to their potential workforce. If you go out or you have a need to recruit, don't just assume that you need to recruit the same skill set that's left. Have a conversation. So speak to the person who's leaving, speak to the team that they work with, their internal customers, and if possible external customers. Find out exactly what it is that person delivers, because there's always a little bit of mission creep on job descriptions, and it sort of evolves. So kind of retranslate that into what we need now, and then go out to market with a very, very clear message. Choose your channels. So Facebook jobs, you've got LinkedIn, there's multiple job boards out there. Be very, very clear on your timelines. So in order to make sure that you harness the talent that does apply, don't have ever-ending closing dates. Have a closing date, commit to an interview date. If you have to do second interview, commit to that fairly rapidly after that, so that you've got a timeline of maybe a 4 to 6 week window, because by the time 6 weeks is up, the whole candidate market will have moved on.
Yes, yeah.
But I think increasingly we're going to be looking at digital solutions for the delivery of some of the sort of interactions with our candidates and clients. But we will see what that looks like.
And do you think, thinking about Ann Corder and the challenges you might face, we've heard a lot in the last few months about artificial intelligence and all these different tools and things that are popping up. Is there a place for that in recruitment? Do you see that being a useful thing?
Not for us, because we are very personal about how we apply our service. So the relationship piece is the bit that maintains our business and nourishes it. But I can see for organizations that have large intakes, and there is a need. I mean, there's been video interview that's been around for some time. And I think the early adopters of that will probably have finessed it so that it works well now. And I think, it's 20 years ago, we were all filling in paper application forms for jobs, weren't we? I can't remember the last time that has happened unless it's in a regulated environment. So it'll be very, very interesting to see how video fulfills that need. We were still doing face-to-face interviews before COVID. That was our preferred method. We now realise that actually having this sort of virtual accessibility means that you can see more candidates on their terms, and that's what you need to do at the moment, is recognise that it's got to be on their terms, as well as they're as equally, if not slightly more important. I feel sure that 10 years from now we'll be looking back and saying video interviewing, that's old hat.
Yes, yeah. Just scan your fingerprint here and we'll decide whether you get the job or not.
Yeah, probably.
So let's think, I mean, you're in the leadership seat now. You've been the managing director of Ann Corder now for almost a couple of years.
Yes, yeah. 2 years in 3 weeks' time. 1st of April 2021.
Wow.
Yeah.
So where are you looking to take the business now?
So we have fairly, I wouldn't say ambitious growth plans, but we certainly have plans to grow. COVID forced us to look at what we had done historically. We had to evolve. There are loads of tumbleweed moments and some very honest conversations about what does the business look like post once this is all over. And often when we were having those conversations, we didn't know when that was going to be. I mean, lockdown 1 in March 2020, I was concerned about whether or not I was going to get my holiday in France in June, so we kind of had to elongate that. And it was always survivable, but it was about appetite. It was about having the appetite to come out of COVID as a fitter, stronger business. And so we had to make some really tough decisions around headcount and process and how we delivered our services. So the business plan from the point that I took over the first year was just, let's stabilize. Let's make sure that there's market out there. And it came back so fast. It was like a train. And then it was about sustain that stability. So let's look at, the last years was around sustaining the market share that we had and exploring what new market share there was out there available to us. For us, in terms of moving forward, we recognize that often SMEs don't have the breadth of insight and expertise internally, and sometimes need to look elsewhere for greater insight. So we're currently in the process of delivering building an SME offering that gives access to a panel of experts. We have a specific area targeted in that we're targeting, but I won't share what that is, just in case the competitors are watching. And we're going to grow by at least two headcount this year. So we're bringing in 2 new recruiters to support that growth, with a view to then bringing in another 2 at the end for the next financial year, so that we will then have retained our pre-COVID numbers. We are a really small business. We're a micro business. We punch well above our weight in terms of our client base, but we can then, that will be the next stage of growth. And once we're then at that point, it's kind of how do we build out from there. But it's exciting times ahead for sure.
It is exciting, and I always ask my clients certainly to reflect on, are there any obvious challenges or obstacles in the path of that growth plan? I mean, can you see anything that could, potentially stand in your way as you take the business from one level to the next?
For me, it's always about keeping the right people in the business. We are a people business. That's what we deal with. We deal in people and with people. So our biggest concern, threat is our people, our outstanding internal excellent recruiters. So we've done a lot around building out our employee experience so that it's hard to go and find that somewhere else. Very lucky to have a really loyal and very trusted team. You know, and they're equally, everybody is outstanding at what they do, but as a collective, it's something else. We kind of we almost like multiply each other's skills, so that so we need to find people who can build into that. But yeah, people, in short.
People is the answer.
Yeah, I could have answered with one word there, people.
So, I mean, let's reflect back on those 26 years, because what we're really looking for here are lessons, either things that you've learned or things that perhaps you would advise your younger self if you could go back and have that conversation.
Yeah.
Across that time, what are the biggest learnings for you in business?
I think personally, it's around a bit of self-belief.
Right.
The imposter looms large at times when you are taking steps forward in your career. And I think I've listened to that imposter too much over the years. So I would try and find a way to gag it completely. So I think that's on a personal level for me, that's probably the biggest learning is having the confidence in yourself. But there's a timings have to be right, don't they? So you know that it was the right time for me to take that step into the MD role when I did it, and although I constantly told myself, what are you doing? People will find out you can't do your job. It has actually transpired that it's been a very successful step forward for all of the people in the organisation, not just me. So I'm really proud of that.
What's that moment, Nel, if I can just interrupt you there for a second, where after maybe a few months, you sat in the chair and you were thinking, I do belong here, actually, and I have earned the right to be here, and I have got the skill to be here. Was there a breakthrough moment like that where you finally crushed the imposter syndrome?
Not entirely and not completely yet. It still sometimes feels like someone else's chair and I'm just keeping it warm. But I think there's probably been two moments where I've felt that kind of really unfamiliar surge of confidence that I'm taking the right decisions. The first was when we went live with the announcement that Anne was stepping back and I was stepping into the MD shoes. And I think I got something ridiculous, like 170 something comments on LinkedIn, which, you know, I still go back and read them sometimes when I'm sitting there with my head in my hands thinking, I can't do this. I step back and look at those. And then having just concluded our business planning meeting for the next kind of imagining of our business plan, and actually looking back at some of the figures that we've achieved over the last year, and they are in terms of things like conversion rates and total sales and new clients and returning clients, and they're really, really impressive. And actually, when you drill down on the why that is, why are people coming back to us? It's because they like what we do, and being the person who curates what we do, that gave me an enormous sense of pride and place. And also, I suppose then if you do, you know, track back to those video testimonials, and as uncomfortable as it is saying, oh, why do you like working with me? The responses were really authentic, and they were heartfelt, and they were meant. And you know, that gives me an enormous sense of pride. But I am a great believer in the we, not the me. So everything that's been achieved by the organisation, you know, pre-COVID, during COVID, kind of in our version 2.0 that we're in now, which is the sort of new owners and step back and me and the leadership team, it's something that's been delivered by the collective. And I take huge pride in that also.
So that lesson that's learned there is what the first one, if there may be more, but the really important one about self-belief, that stands out first.
And it's amazing when you have conversations with people, everybody has it. Everyone has that feeling now, every now and then, or some people are actually dominated and crippled by it.
Yeah.
And it's really, I think it's really empowering to say that you lack in, that you have that or acknowledging it probably, and actually sort of acknowledging it, and as publicly as this. And I would encourage people to kind of acknowledge it, but go, well, okay, let's try it anyway.
Yeah, it happened to me. I was in the Air Force, and at one point later on in my career, they put me in charge of one of its frontline flying squadrons.
Wow.
And I remember sitting in the office, having looked up to the person in that office, you know, for most of my career, sitting in the office thinking, little old me. Suddenly in charge.
Who's going to listen to little old me? Yeah.
Of all of this, how on earth am I going to be able to persuade people that I, you know, belong here, I deserve to be here? So yeah, I've had it as well, and I absolutely understand that. Brilliant insight. So let's finish off, Nel, with just a question really about if there's anything you want to share with the rest of the audience who are watching this. Is there anything coming up, any events or any changes and things that you want to share with us about Ann Corder Recruitment?
Well, indeed. If there are any recruiters out there listening and who might be interested in approaching me to have a conversation about whether your next steps with us, then please do so. We've always got room for good people. And secondly, for everyone else, we run a quite broad-ranging set of virtual events that take place. We try and do 2 a month, apart from August, because everyone's on holiday. So this month, next on Wednesday, the 6th, I'm not sure when this is going out actually, so perhaps it will have already happened. So 6th of March, we have an employment law seminar. The following week, we have an event around the agile working employee. We've got some events coming up on trust, imposter syndrome, huge number. So please check out our website for our events. They're open to anybody who wants to come. You'd be most welcome to come along and spend an hour in the company of some highly expert and entertaining and engaging individuals.
Brilliant. Great advertisement for the virtual events. So yeah, and that's all on your website. There's a full list of things there.
Indeed. Yeah.
I feel like I could talk for another hour. Looking at the clock thinking we're supposed to keep these really short and tight, but I absolutely love that. I love the insight. I love the frontline view of leadership. I love the fact that you know, we talked about imposter syndrome and the 4-day working week and all those kind of things. So Nel, I absolutely appreciate your time that you've spent with us on the Business Spotlight today.
My pleasure.